Since I'm sure there are no lawyers in the audience, let me tell you. A doctor, a lawyer, and an engineer were discussing whose profession was the oldest. The doctor said, well, mine is the oldest because it said God took a rib from Adam. That was surgery. And the engineer said, no, no, mine's the oldest because it said God created order out of chaos. That was engineering. And the lawyer said, who do you think created chaos? Well, after 6 years, it was time to move on, time to find what we call a solo pulpit. I announced I was going to be leaving. People were upset, and one guy was particularly sad, and he told me. I said, you know, I really appreciate what you're feeling, but believe me, the next rabbi will do a better job than I did. He said, I don't know, Bob. That's what they told us the last time. We live in a very remote area, and we have one neighbor who's like a half mile down the road who was not very friendly, and that upset me. But one day I was walking by his house, I could see through the window he was waving to me, so I waved back, and he waved again, and I waved back, and he waved again, and I waved back. Looked a little more carefully, he was using his elliptical. Another fantasy, I always had lots of fantasies, another fantasy of mine would be to fly El Al Israel Airlines and order non-kosher. Could you imagine that? Hakshivu, hakshivu. Would the passenger who ordered treif please identify himself? I did a kosher one time. I was flying over to Moscow to visit refuseniks around 1982, kind of cloak and dagger time back then. It was during Passover, and I was on Lufthansa Airlines. The food came in an aluminum dish. On top of the food was wax paper. Around the wax paper was aluminum foil. Around the aluminum foil, saran wrap. On top of the saran wrap was a little sticker with O's, U's, K's, and 3 rabbi signatures. Well, I tore away the sticker with the O's, the U's, K's, 3 rabbi signatures, got rid of the saran wrap, picked off the aluminum foil, lifted up the wax paper, and there was my Passover meal, a bagel. Autumn weddings are a little bit better because the temperature is much more conducive. I had an autumn wedding where the chuppah was set up in front of a pond on a large estate. Things went very nicely until about halfway through when it seemed as if the entire goose population of Ottawa decided to swoop in for a pit stop into the pond behind me. So once they landed, they had to discuss their journey with great enthusiasm. I had to stop everything. I said, ladies and gentlemen, try to ignore the commotion behind me. It's just the pate warming up. So I still, even after I left congregation, I used to do a lot of weddings. I only do 1 or 2 maybe every couple of years, only for nieces and grandnieces primarily. But did tons and tons of weddings back in my day. And the worst had to be the outdoor summer event in Philadelphia. I know how these happen. People select a location in the winter or spring and don't anticipate how dreadful it is in the middle of July and August in Philadelphia. I had one wedding, it was 99 degrees out. Everyone stayed in the air-conditioned reception room to the very last moment. When it was time to begin, the ushers first escorted all the elderly people out. Well, they do that as kind of a courtesy, so the older folks can spend just a little extra time in the heat and humidity. The couple dragged themselves down the aisle. When they reached me, the bride looked at me imploringly. She said, Rabbi, it's so hot. Could you please make it a quick ceremony? I said, do you both want to be married? They said yes. I said, you are. Any collection of Jewish jokes always needs to start with the telling of what's called the quintessential Jewish joke. The definition of a quintessential Jewish joke is a joke that a Gentile person may or may not understand, and a Jewish person has already heard. Jewish man had a daughter. She was the apple of his eye. And what she wanted most when she graduated from high school was to go to the University of Arizona to study Indian lore. About this idea, she pardoned the expression, he had reservations. I have to say that. But he sent her there, and what he's afraid of happened during her senior year. She sent him an email, Dad, I met the most wonderful man. We're going to be married. He's a Native American. Well, he was crushed. He cut off the relationship. He no longer had a daughter. A few years later, another email, Dad, I miss you. I want to see you again. And I want you to know we've had a child to whom we've given a Jewish name. His heart melted. He got on the next flight down to Tucson, and there at the airport was his daughter. handsome husband, beautiful little baby all wrapped in a blanket. They hugged, they kissed, they wept. And finally she said, "Here he is, Pop, your new grandson, Whitefish."